united. We ought to work together so that we can achieve what we strive for. Shall we pray? Sibongile uNkulunkulu wethu ithuba osinikeza lona moya oyingcwele. Sibonga umusa nothando osithanda ngalo. Sibonga Nkosi yami ukuthi noma sesijika sesingathembekanga kuwe kodwa wena usilandela njalo ngothando. Siyabonga moya oyingcwele ukuthi ezwini lakho uthe konke esicelayo masicela egameni lika Jesu wena unamandla okusenzela kona. Sibonga ukuthembeka kwakho Nkosi sesingasakwenzanga ukuthembeka kuwe wena njalo usilandela ngothando kuze kuyoba sekufeni namanje ngale press conference namanje ngale lizwe lakithi iSouth Africa. Sikhulula amandla okuthembeka, sikhulula amandla okuhlangana nozwano nobumbano, sikhulula amandla ukuthi zonke izinto esizifisayo njengemayibuye zenzeke for abantu bakithi eSouth Africa. Sikhulula amandla moya oyingcwele okushintsha ingqondo zabantu nezinhliziyo zilungele ushintsho, zilungele ubuhle, zilungele isithunzi esisibhekile kumuntu nomuntu onsundu. We pray moya oyingcwele sikhuleka ngaphansi kwesimo sama drugs esikhungethe intsha yakithi. We pray phansi kwesimo seJBV moya oyingcwele sithi uNkulunkulu onamandla iGBV iwubusathane, it's evil. Moya weqiniso sinezidingo eziningi singabantu esisibhekile moya engcwele solekelelwa nguwe ukuthi sizi-achieve siyilo mbutho we-Africa Mayibuye. Iba kanye nathi ke uNkulunkulu ube kanye nezintatheli zonke zisazosibuza imibuzo, ube no president wethu esazokhuluma moya weqiniso membathe egameni nasegazini kaJesu. We receive and we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Comrade, Second Deputy President of Africa Mayibuye Movement, Comrade Nomsa Kamashobani Sibisi, for a powerful prayer. Let me also mention that this press conference comes after a powerful prayer yesterday hosted by Africa Mayibuye Movement Chaplain General, Archbishop Bafana Zondo at the Rivers of Living Waters, a branch here in Johannesburg, which also attracted a lot of pastors throughout South Africa, in majority of the provinces, who came and said, we want to pray for Africa Mayibuye's upcoming national convention, that it becomes a peaceful gathering. Indeed, thank you everyone who managed to come yesterday. Before we begin with our program, let me also acknowledge the leadership of Africa Mayibuye who's here. We have the first Deputy President of Africa Mayibuye, Tatowa Mahohodi, from the Northwest Province. We've got the second Deputy President of Africa Mayibuye, Comrade Nomsa Kamashobani Msibi, from KwaZulu-Natal Province. We also have on the far right, the second Deputy Secretary General of Africa Mayibuye from the Western Cape Province, Comrade Nosipo Makamba. And then on my immediate right, we've got the Secretary General of Africa Mayibuye Movement, Comrade Lazola Ndamase from the Eastern Cape Province, Comrade Lazola. And then we have the Fundraiser General, Comrade Menzima Gubani from KwaZulu-Natal Province. Then we have with us here the National Organizer of Africa Mayibuye Movement, Comrade Patrick Sindani from Gauteng Province. We have the Deputy National Organizer, Comrade Lindy Spires from the Western Cape Province. We have the first Deputy Secretary General, Comrade Mzwandile Goge, who's also responsible for Africa Mayibuye Workers Desk and Mobilization. He's from the KZN Province. We have the Treasurer General, Comrade Tsepo Mahanuke, who is from Mpumalanga Province. And then we have Dr. Nozi, who is the President of Africa Mayibuye Women's Movement. We have Comrade Kiamokhetsu Masike, who's the president of Africa Mayibuye Youth Movement. And then we have Mkhanyisi Mbangata, who is the Africa Mayibuye Student Movement president. Thank you very much, the leadership, and all people, all ground forces from around this ward who came here to come and grace us. And then we've got an NCT member as well, Comrade Mtombeni from Gauteng. We have the hosting chairperson who's going to be hosting us this coming weekend at our historic moment as Africa Mayibuye, Comrade Busano Bela, the chair of Gauteng province. Let me also note that amongst us, we've got the chief administrator at the back with her office. And then we have amongst us Comrade Mamkize, who's the head of presidency in the Africa Mayibuye movement. We have Comrade Sydney, who's heading our communications office, Comrade Sydney Baloy. And then we've got our communications officer, a liaison officer, Comrade Maseda, who's also with us. And then we've got Comrade Lebo, who's dealing with communications in Africa Mayibuye movement. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take this moment and welcome the president of Africa Mayibuye to the podium to come and brief us, all of us South Africans, as to what is it that's going to be happening over the coming 3 days here at the University of Johannesburg, UJ campus. Comrade President Nyiko.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, National Chairperson of Africa Mayibuye Movement, Comrade Mabato Mokause, and greetings to the officials of Africa Mayibuye Movement, to the leadership of the province, to members and ground forces of Africa Mayibuye Movement, who have joined us from different parts of South Africa, to members of the media. Also greetings to the people of South Africa who were here to talk to in terms of the issues pertaining to the National Convention of Africa Mayibuye Movement. We convene this press conference here in Soweto, in Johannesburg, which is the cradle of resistance and a symbol of the unyielding spirit of our people in the pursuit of freedom and dignity. We gather here to announce significant developments in our organizational journey and to reaffirm our commitment to the total emancipation of the African people. At the outset, we acknowledge the entire leadership of Africa Mayibuye Movement as reconfigured and publicly announced in our previous media statement. This leadership structure represents a fortified cadre of dedicated revolutionaries who embodied the aspirations of the masses and stand ready to lead the charge against all forms of oppression and exploitation. We reaffirm the following national leadership structure, composed of comrades whose proven dedication and strategic acumen will guide our movement through the challenges and programs ahead. In terms of the reconfigured structure, we'll read the entire component which was reconfigured. That the first deputy president is Tato Amahohodi, that the second deputy president is Nomusa Sibisi Kamashobani. The third deputy president is Pepile Cyprian Mahlaba, who is also the chairperson of KwaZulu-Natal province. The secretary general is Lazolan Damase. The first deputy secretary general is Mzwandile Goge. The second deputy secretary general is Nosipo Makamba. The The national chairperson is Mabato Mokause. The deputy national chairperson is Sipiwe Mkatwa. The national organizer is Patrick Sindani. The deputy national organizer is Lindy Spires. The treasurer general is Tsepo Mahanuke. The fundraiser general is Menzima Gubani. And our chaplain general remains Archbishop Stephen Bafana Zondo. This leadership collective is formed and part of the leadership collective of heads of departments and heads of offices, but also of the presidents of the Africa Mayibuye Women, Youth and Students formations. That the leadership collective draws from diverse experiences and regions, ensuring that our movement remains rooted in the realities of the people while advancing a unified vision for radical transformation. Under their guidance, we continue to build an organization that prioritizes the interests of the working class, the poor, and the marginalized, drawing inspiration from the liberation struggles that have defined our country and our continent. As we enter the month of December, we recognize its profound significance in the society and politics of South Africa and the world. In South Africa, December marks a period of reflection on our democratic journey, coinciding with key historical milestones that remind us of the ongoing fight for social justice and economic equality. It is a time when workers' rights come into sharp focus and global events underscore the need for solidarity among nations striving for self-determination. Internationally, December evokes themes of human rights and unity as observed through various commemorations that highlight the interconnectedness of global struggles against imperialism and inequality. As we stated in a media statement which we publicly issued on the 1st of December, we as Africa Mayibuye movement reaffirm our congratulatory message to the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, on its 40th anniversary. COSATU was founded on the 1st of December 1985 and has stood as a beacon of workers' power, uniting diverse unions in the battle against apartheid and capitalist exploitation. We as Africa Mayibuye movement view and characterize COSATU and all workers' formations, inclusive of SAFTU, FEDUSA, NACTU, as potential strategic allies because they represent the backbone of our society, the workers and the working class who produce the wealth, yet endure the brunt of poverty and precarity. Our movement commits to forging deeper alliances with these workers' formations to advance a shared agenda of economic emancipation and social justice now. The Africa Mayibuye movement has resolved to establish a workers' desk which will provide assistance and prioritize the following sectors: EPWP workers, CWP workers, security guards, petrol attendants, retail chain stores workers, farm workers. These workers represent the economy's backbone, yet face denial of dignity. The Mayibuye Workers' Desk will be convened by Comrade Mzwandile Goge, who will establish workers' desks at provincial, regional, sub-regional and ward levels of the movement. The workers' desks is not a replacement of unions, but will reinforce the work of all unions, irrespective of partisan affiliation, to assist the plight of workers in all sectors and all workplaces in South Africa. Furthermore, we reaffirm our congratulatory messages to the Arab Emirates on the occasion of their National Day, which was celebrated on the 2nd of December, yesterday. The 2nd of December in the United Arab Emirates represents the unification of the 7 Emirates in 1971, which formed a sovereign nation that has since exemplified resilience, innovation, and progress in the face of colonial legacies. We draw parallels between the UAE's journey towards unity and our own aspirations for a united Africa free from external domination and internal divisions. We take this opportunity, the people of South Africa, ladies and gentlemen, ground forces of Africa Mayibuye movement, to announce again with great confidence that this coming weekend of the 5th to the 7th of December 2025, Africa Mayibuye movement will hold its inaugural national convention here at the University of Johannesburg, Soweto campus. This important event will serve as a pivotal moment in our organizational development, where we will deliberate on policies, strategies, and programs to accelerate the liberation of our people. The convention will bring together delegates from all provinces of South Africa, alongside our political partners and strategic allies, affiliated structures representing the youth, students, women, traditional leaders, and religious leaders. These representatives will engage in robust discussions to chart a course towards total freedom and emancipation now, addressing the pressing issues that afflict our communities and nation. We take this opportunity to remind all the identified delegates from provinces, regions, and sub-regions that they should pay for the registration fee for the national convention, because the resources raised from registration fees are extremely important for the national convention to happen and to be successful. Ladies and gentlemen, the people of South Africa, in the intervening period, the movement has engaged actively in a variety of political, social, and religious activities and programs. These initiatives have strengthened our grassroots presence and deepened our connections with the masses. Notable amongst the activities and programs that we participated in as Africa Mayibuye movement is the annual Motsepe Foundation National Day of Prayer, held a few kilometers from here on the 30th of November 2025. This gathering united religious denominations and institutions that represents the majority of the people of South Africa, fostering a collective call for spiritual and societal renewal. The event was attended by important religious institutions and bodies, including the Zion Christian Church, the different streams of the Nazareth Baptist Church, Bandla Lama Nazareta, inclusive of Ibandla Lama Nazareta, Asebuhleni, Ekuphakameni, Ginyezizwe, and Tembelihla, and the stream that is led by Nkosi Phakama Shembe. The event was also attended by the Bantu Church of Christ, the International Pentecostal Holiness Church, the Roman Catholic Church of South Africa, the Anglican Church of Southern Africa, the Methodist Church of Southern Africa, the Apostolic Faith Mission of South Africa, the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Southern Africa, the Presbyterian Church of Africa, the Baptist Union of South Africa, the Seventh-day Adventist Church of South Africa, the Assemblies of God of South Africa, the Full Gospel Church of God in Southern Africa, the United Congregational Church of Southern Africa, the Moravian Church in South Africa, the Reformed churches in Africa, and the Ethiopian Episcopal Church and the United Apostolic Church. Additionally, the Motsepe Foundation National Day of Prayer was attended by representatives from the Muslim community through the Muslim Judicial Council, the Jewish community via the South African Jewish Board of Deputies, and the Hindu community through the South African Hindu Maha Sabha participated, reflecting the diverse spiritual fabric of our nation. What stands out about the National Day of Prayer is that religious leaders addressed the socio-economic conditions plaguing and confronting the people of South Africa, including crime, unemployment, poverty, gender-based violence and femicide, and access to water. These leaders, who represent an absolute majority of the population of South Africa, maintain daily contact with the people in their communities, offering guidance, support, and advocacy. In contrast, politicians and political parties who are supposed to be the true representatives of the people are currently busy with palace politics, detached from the lived realities of the people. As we stated in our previous communication, the issues of crime and corruption require thorough attention and resolution, but not at the expense of addressing socio-economic challenges that perpetuate inequality and suffering. We find particular inspiration in the holy sermon delivered in the National Day of Prayer by His Grace Bishop Dr. Barnabas Nganas Likhanyan of the Zion Christian Church, who emphasized the need to provide water to the people of South Africa. We find inspiration because in our previous communication, we highlighted the issue of water as one of the most important issues that must be looked into. His Grace Bishop B.E. Likhanyan also spoke about the high levels of corruption, which he described as choking the nation and existing at high-grade level, eroding the moral fabric of society. Bishop Mbongwa Nzamar of the Nazareth Baptist Church, Ebuhleni, spoke about crime and asserted that criminals live amongst us, calling for community vigilance and moral renewal. His Grace the Comforter, FLG Modise of the International Pentecostal Holiness Church, spoke about the need for unity, urging the nation to overcome divisions that hinder progress. Apostle Simon Mukwena of the Tyrannus Apostolic Church spoke about the long-standing principle of loving one another and encouraged children to respect their parents, fostering family values as a foundation for societal stability. The representatives of the Muslim Judicial Council emphasized the social justice and economic inequality, calling for equitable resource distribution to uplift the marginalized. The representative of the Muslim Judicial Council also called for continued solidarity with the people of Palestine. All these leaders who spoke in the National Day of Prayer represented the aspirations and interests and wishes of the people of South Africa, articulating the cries of the oppressed and the hopes for a better future. Their messages resonated deeply because they stem from direct engagement with communities facing daily hardships. We raise all these issues because no one else seems to be discussing these issues much more importantly. because political leaders, all the represented political leaders, remain preoccupied with palace politics, internal power struggles, and elite negotiations that ignore the plight of ordinary citizens. It is our view that those that attended and participated in the National Day of Prayer possibly represent more than 70, if not 80% of South Africans, if you were to check the denominations and religious institutions that they come from. And in all their interventions, not once did they refer to palace politics. They spoke about the conditions and aspirations of the people, the issues of water, the issues of unemployment, the issues of jobs, the issues of gender-based violence and femicide, the issues of infrastructure that must be improved in our communities. Yesterday, on the 2nd of December, our chaplain general, Archbishop Bafana Stephen Zondo, also presided over a dedicated prayer day for the National Convention of Africa Mayibuye Movement. And once again, the sermons that were delivered in the prayer day for the National Convention demonstrated that religious leaders deeply care about the aspirations of our people. South Africa is still confronted with a variety of challenges and crises, including a stagnating economy. Despite false claims in certain quarters of claiming easy victories and imminent prosperity, South Africa remains entrenched in a profound crisis of economic stagnation. The projections of this year of 2025 indicate that the economy will expand by a mere 0.9%, again less than 1%, a rate that is far behind the population growth. And this will result in the declining of GDP per capita. This low economic growth reflects structural impediments, including reduced productivity in public enterprises and inadequate reforms to foster sustainable and reliable development of the productive forces, otherwise referred to as economic growth. And such stagnation of the economy will hamper the creation of jobs and will perpetuate high levels of unemployment and inequality, undermining the aspirations of millions who seek dignified existence. The ramifications or consequences of a stagnated economy extend far beyond the immediate fiscal constraints, because the nature of a stagnating economy means that more and more of our people will remain in absolute poverty with no clear signs of how they're going to exit from the high levels of poverty. We as Africa Mayibuye Movement reaffirm our call for the establishment of a commission of inquiry into the black poverty, the poverty of black people. We need to speak to what causes black poverty and how do we permanently remove black poverty in our communities, because black people continue to be the poorest of all the population groups in South Africa. We have produced a substantial policy position on how this commission should be handled and how its outcomes should be binding and effective in addressing poverty, instead of the futile commissions that have taken place thus far. Africa Mayibuye Movement also calls for a dedicated focus on the provision of clean and drinkable water for all communities that currently lack this essential resource. Because water is life and its absence perpetuates and continues the suffering and diseases amongst our people. We demand that the national government should use Section 23 of the Disaster Management Act to declare water shortages as a national disaster until all water crises and shortages have been addressed in all communities in South Africa. Demarcating water shortages as a national disaster will allow for enhanced intergovernmental coordination and emergency funding to address the crisis of water shortages. There must not be a single village or peri-urban or unrecognized settlement, township, suburb, town or city that does not have access to clean and drinkable water in South Africa. And this can be achieved within 12 months if all of us pay attention to that. We also want to urge and encourage all spheres of society, including all spheres of government, civil society organizations, companies, businesses, and individuals who possess the means to contribute actively to bringing water to the waterless communities through investments in infrastructure, community projects, and sustainable solutions at whatever scale and size. Mayibuye Africa has already begun with the provision of water. In Collins Chabane municipality, we already have begun borehole projects, despite the dryness of the land surface where we were supposed to get water. Because in one of the projects which we have started, we dug for more than 100 meters and still found no water. And we are now looking into geological report that will extract water from a different area, but closer to where the water is needed. In Amatole region, in the Eastern Cape, in the great Ngadu place, the Ngadu great place of Ikumkani Asangene Stau, we have sent through a team that is conducting a geological survey and will begin with the borehole projects to give water to the people of Mbashe in the communities that we visited during the consultation process. We have also commissioned the procurement of large pump machine which will assist in pumping water from the Pongola River in Sikemele, in Jozini municipality, in Mkanyakude, in KwaZulu-Natal, in Ward 23, to respond to the request that we received from female small-scale farmers who do not have an irrigation system. Africa Mayibuye movement continues to provide practical solutions and responses to the people of South Africa now. Our clarion call remains total freedom and emancipation now. We are the only organization that is not driven by intentions and aspirations to steal government resources. We note with concern that the United States of America has vowed to exclude South Africa from the upcoming G20 Leaders Summit in 2026, following its exclusion from preparatory meetings based on unfounded lies about domestic affairs and imaginary genocide. This aggressive posture by the US undermines global cooperation and reflects an impending and lingering imperial mindset. Africa Mayibuye movement calls firmly on the South African government to lobby all other members of the G20 to isolate the United States of America in favor of multilateralism and balanced global government systems and infrastructure. The era of unipolar world must remain behind us, and allowing the United States to bully South Africa on the basis of fabrications and imaginary genocide will set a dangerous and unsustainable precedent that threatens the sovereignty of developing and global South nations. Furthermore, we call for immediate peace in all African countries afflicted by conflict and war, including Sudan, Somalia, Democratic Republic of Congo, Nigeria, Chad, Cameroon, and the Central African Republic, where there continues to be internal strife and violence. Africa Mayibuye movement strongly calls for the strengthening of multilateral institutions in the African continent to have the ability to bring about peace and stability in all areas of our continent. The facilitation of intra-African peace agreements by outside countries with colonial and neo-colonial aspirations is not sustainable and must be discontinued. The African continent must take full control over its destiny without colonial supervision. The African Union must be the one that facilitates for peaceful coexistence of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda, and not the United States of America. In our call for peace, we remain concerned about the manner in which elections were held in Tanzania, in Cameroon, and Cote d'Ivoire. That these elections do not represent the will of the people. The outcomes of those elections represent the will of the incumbent regime. Towards conclusion, Mayibuye stands as a stable and resolute and resolute force in the politics of South Africa. We will continue to advocate for the development of our country and all our communities, ensuring that every citizen enjoys equal access to water and sanitation. These commitments extend to fostering environments where basic needs are met without discrimination and allowing all people to thrive in dignity. We assure all the traditional and royal leaders and all the religious leaders from all parts of South Africa that Africa Mayibuye movement will never be destabilized and will never be destroyed by anything or by anyone. We remain a strong and formidable organization on the ground. We remain the most consistent and resilient movement on the ground. Our movement remains unwavering in its pursuit of a society where access to water, electricity, basic decent sanitation, proper public infrastructure, and is guaranteed to all the marginalized community. We pledge to mobilize resources and strategic partnerships and alliances to address all the foundational issues, recognizing that true emancipation requires concrete actions that uplift the poorest and most vulnerable. Africa Mayibuye movement, as we march towards the national convention, we reaffirm our dedication to a transformed South Africa where equality in access to basic needs forms the cornerstone of our national rebirth. The spirit of unity and resilience that defines our people will prevail, and we invite all the progressive forces in this noble endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade President, for appraising all leaders of Africa Mayibuye across all 9 provinces of South Africa and the people of South Africa as to where we are and where we are heading to. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, I'm now going to note hands. Can I note hands? If when we hand over the microphone, please let us know which media house you are representing, your name and surname. Thank you very much. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Tabi Sokoba from Eyewitness News. My question is for Mr. Shivambu. I understand, obviously, that at the closing stage, you mentioned that Africa Mayibuye movement remains a stable political party. But I think you can understand that there might be some criticism saying that, this is a party that's newly formed and already you've had a leadership overhaul. Some people resigned, some people were pushed, some people they jumped before they could get pushed. Just maybe how do you respond to that, especially to the fact that, this is a very new organization and already there's been a lot of changes. My second question is it's around, again, it stems from the first question in terms of the people that have left. Do you maybe have an understanding of maybe why did these people leave? Was that communicated to you? And maybe what lessons maybe have you learned at this early stage of starting a new political party? I think obviously your previous political party, the MK party, we've seen just how much changes they've had over just in less than 2 years since they formed. Just what lessons have you learned, maybe from your experience in the MK party and your experience here at Africa Mayibuye, just of the difficulties or the challenges of starting a new political party? Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Ntebu. I'm with the SAPC. I've got few questions. Firstly, I would want to know, I've seen a number of manifestos, but I've seen that yours it says Restoration Manifesto. What is the thinking behind Restoration Manifesto? Secondly, I think history taught us that between 1990 and 1994, around 20,000 people were killed in South Africa alone. I'm not talking about pre-1990. But 20,000 people were killed in South Africa, mainly black. No one was really arrested for that, I would say. No commission was set up. There's been a call that those people who are responsible must be sent to either The Hague or charged for crimes against humanity. There's been that call. But nothing happened. And before 1990, I would say 1 million people died under apartheid. No commission was set up. So you're calling for the commission on poverty. How confident and convinced are you that this government would set up a commission to investigate or to really investigate the poverty that has entrapped black people and the poverty that has ravaged black communities? And how confident are you that if there is any outcome, if it happens, that commission, and after that commission there would be recommendations, and those recommendations would be binding under this government? I don't know, maybe I should limit to 2 questions, or do you want to ask all?
You can go ahead.
Okay. On the African continent, there's been a lot of crisis in the continent, and at some point, one Pan-Africanist, Robert Mugabe, spoke about African solution for African problems. It has been there on the table for some time until he left. There was a call by the chairperson of the AU Commission at some point, the South African Dr. Dlamini Zuma, who said, by 2020, I think, we would have silenced the gun in the continent. It never happened, I think. Do you think that we've got the leadership in Africa, especially at the African Union level, to can address or deal with the challenges that the continent is faced with? Are those people really up to scratch? And I'm saying this against the backdrop of what the United States is now overseeing, the peace deal between Rwanda and the DRC. I'm just struggling to understand how can a guy like Donald Trump, for instance, really be legitimate about bringing these two African countries together without any, I would say, a transaction, because he seems to be a transactional president. And if you allow me to look into the future again, Mr. President, and talk about the elections and the outcomes of the elections in 2029. It's not new that at some point we have a political party that was formed, and there were sort of engagements with ordinary people, and ultimately a political party is formed. It's not new. We've traversed that in the past. For instance, we had something like I think Musi Maimane came up with something called One Something, and then ultimately it became Bosa. He said he engaged people. Action SA and Heben Mashaba did the same. But if you look at what how they fared in the last election, they got around 5%, and then less than 5%. After traversing the country and getting views from other people, how confident are you that in the 2029 elections you would get something beyond 5%? What is that is different that you've done, that you can say your engagement with people have indeed electrified and appetized the democratic electorate? I think for now I'll pause.
Thank you. Do we have another hand? Over to you, sir.
Afternoon, Cindy Sontlawati from the Conviction Online. Just as my colleagues have covered most, but it's to looking into the future.
Your name? Did you mention your name?
Yes, Cindy Sontlawati from the Conviction Online.
From?
Conviction Online.
Okay, thank you.
So, pardon me. The elections are coming up in 2026, local government elections, and most political parties will be looking to perform off what some of them have done on by-elections. One, Africa Mayibuye has said that it already has its members in governance in certain municipalities. In particular, also said that there's looking to compete in certain by-elections as well. So we haven't measured Africa Mayibuye in terms of its election machinery, how it's going to perform. So I would like to get an indicator of when you say there is governance of some of your members already, what is that governance in terms of performance looking into the election machinery for 2026? Coming into the leadership as well. The student formation has only existed mainly through, you could say, paper. A number of student elections have happened across the country, and we haven't seen the student formation of Africa Mayibuye make any dent or any visibility. So do you really have that support of a section of young people for Mayibuye's election machinery in the coming year? And then lastly, at the back of what my colleague Tabiso has already said, the leadership overhaul is really showing a shaky foundation. How well is that going to be fixed, or how well is that going to be revamped in preparation for the next coming elections? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other hands? Are we all good? Thank you very much. Members of the media, there's an imaginary leadership turmoil which has been peddled, that there's leadership turmoil within Africa Mayibuye, and that's not true. The meeting of the 28th of November, which took place here in Johannesburg, which was attended by all officials of Africa Mayibuye, including the officials who resigned midnight of the 28th, took a decision in the presence of those officials that because you have not been performing, and there were a number of attempts to get everyone to perform within their duties and responsibilities, we are taking a decision in your presence that we are recalling you from your leadership, and we are reconfiguring the national officials of Africa Mayibuye. They agreed, but opportunistically, midnight, they resigned to themselves and to social media. So they knew that they were recalled. So there is no leadership turmoil within the Africa Mayibuye movement. We are fine, we have reconfigured the way we feel that our leadership will take us forward until the upcoming elections and beyond. I'm now going to hand over to the first Deputy President, followed by the Secretary General, and then the Secretary General, Comrade Lazola Ndamase, will start, followed by the first Deputy President, and then the President will close this presser. Over to you, SG.
Thank you very much, Chair. I want to respond to the question about the thinking around the Restoration Manifesto. And maybe let me say this little portion in isiXhosa. There's a phrase that the older people say that lo mhlaba usenqangathi ligazi lamaqhawe. What does that mean? It means that the soil is still laced with the blood of the heroes. And as you walk on it, your feet can feel that blood. So what is, in this particular context, a restoration manifesto? The masses of the people expected that in 1994 they would be nowhere near the current conditions that they live in. They had hope about the South Africa that they would get. And they expressed that through the massive voter turnout in 1994. Whatever they voted for, whoever they voted for, there was only about 9% abstention in the 1994 elections. Today, more than 50% of the people eligible to vote do not even set foot on the booth. So you have already an illegitimate political system in the eyes of the masses of the oppressed. All it needs is a fight between supporters of Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates at FNB, and the country would lit up very easily. Because it would lit up under conditions that you would not have expected. So what, therefore, is the Restoration Manifesto? Africa Mayibuye is a 21st century liberation movement born by the conditions in the 21st century. However, a continuation of the struggle for total liberation that is incomplete. It's seeking to restore that which is incomplete, has fallen into the hands of thugs, ideologically weak, politically misguided, and organizationally disorganized formations. Are the people not organized? They are very organized. The President was saying here just recently. You find the masses of the oppressed in church, they are there every Sunday. You find the masses of the oppressed in soccer teams, they train from Monday to Friday. And interspersed wherever they are to be found, you find them in traditional gatherings under the stewardship of Amakos. They are there attempting to resolve their problems. The fourth one, which is very sad for us as Africans, is that we down our sorrows in alcohol and drugs. Because we want to dump down the pain of having a country and staying in it, but it is not yours. So substantively, the Restoration Manifesto is to uplift the masses of the oppressed, unite them under one banner, and ensure that there is total liberation. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade SG. The first Deputy President of Africa Mayibuye Movement, Comrade Tatowa Mahohodi, will now respond.
Thank you very much, members of the media, fellow South Africans. We will tackle the question that is posed around the issue of whether the Africa Mayibuye movement is offering something different to South Africans. Laced at the background of that question was a contention made that we've had various political parties in recent history being formed in South Africa, including BOSA, Action SA, and all of these organizations that have been formed in recent history which have not had the necessary traction to be able to attract South Africans in the direction of according them the respect through the ballot box. It is our humble counter proposition that as the Africa Mayibuye movement, we are offering a very serious value proposition that is incomparable. And therefore, the attempt to want to compare us to some of these political parties which have nothing to offer South Africans is indeed, from our view, inaccurate and highly misleading. The reality is that contained in our value proposition is a message that South Africans would be able to resonate with as a matter of natural necessity. The first cardinal element of that message is that we are talking about total freedom and emancipation now, not tomorrow. And a manifestation of our commitment to that is, amongst others, the issues that the President have raised. That we are not just theorizing about the problems of our people. As and when we go to our communities, listening to them, giving us their problems, we immediately take account of the nature of the problems in order to ensure that we are able to craft solutions. The President has been able to give you, for instance, the example of the water access crisis that is existing in the country, and the fact that throughout our interactions with our people across the length and breadth of this country, we've been able to pick up specific examples of these, and we are already actioning specific solutions that are tailored to those communities. That is the first point. So we are not theorizing about responding to the problems or only waiting for the day Mayibuye is a government. And for me, that is the starting point in differentiating us from these political parties that exist only in abstraction. The second point that we need to drive, which tries to clarify the fact that we can't be compared with some of these political parties that you've spoken about, is the fact that these political parties, in our view, that you've mentioned, Action SA and BOSA, are just but what we would call or would characterize as artificial splits from the DA. You can call them DA light. Our people, in their majority, the 64 million South Africans that are there, will never resonate with the message of the DA. The DA has reached its ceiling, even in its artificial splits. They will never be able to resonate with our people, because our people can see on a daily basis that none of which they're claiming is actually a commitment to resolving their problems. The DA is governing already in the Western Cape now. Their focus in terms of resolving the problems of our people is the white areas and municipalities. We can see the townships. When you land from the Cape International Airport, already just driving from the airport, you are able to see townships like Langa, where our people still live in squalor, where the DA governs. So the claims of the DA and their artificial splits, where they govern, have demonstrated over the years to our people that these claims are just about self-aggrandizement and a white agenda that seeks to resonate only with white interests in South Africa. So our people in this country are looking for a party alternative to the current ruling one that is able to provide them a value proposition that is genuine. One that Africa Mayibuye offers, centered around resolving the day-to-day problems of our people. And one of them has been clearly articulated through our articulations and policy positions, which is the argument around the issue of ensuring that there's a commission of inquiry on black poverty in South Africa. We are serious about that. And the question that needs to be posed and answered is whether this will succeed or not. Can I offer you a humble note on this to say, Mayibuye in 2029 will be a governing party in South Africa. So if our call falls on deaf ears of the current South African government, we will take it upon ourselves to ensure that the research we have already made and the framework we have already laid as articulated by our president will be executed with clarity and distinction to ensure that by 2045 we would have resolved all the poverty issues of South Africans. We are not doubting that, because we know that we will deploy men and women with skills. Not what is happening now, where people just take anyone from the streets because they are comrades and they deploy them into strategic positions. People who are unable to offer the necessary skills to be able to resolve the problems of our people. So we are confident that we will be able to eventually resolve it. If it can't happen now, we will do it when we are governing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, First Deputy President of Africa Mayibuye Movement. I'm now going to hand over to Comrade President Floyd Shivambu to close the presser for us. Comrade Floyd.
No, thank you very much, National Chair, and thanks for the very useful questions which were posed here. I think the National Chair has dealt with the imaginary instability or crisis within Africa Mayibuye Movement. So we are a people's organization, and because we are a people's organization, when you constitute leadership, you somehow or somewhat you become a microcosm or reflection of society as a whole. But the resolve that we had from the beginning was that we do not tiptoe around wrongdoing and incompetence in Africa Mayibuye movement. So we confront incompetence directly, and we do not gossip about it. So if leaders, even if they were there from day zero, if they do not do the work of the organization, we tell them, even alongside those that have joined in terms of review, that you are not doing what is expected of you. So the resignations, as the national chairs said, that you have seen of the officials is because of incompetent people who were unable to do organizational work, and we did a scientific measure and assessment of their contribution. It was not adding value to the organization. And the discussion was that we're going to a national convention. Do we go to the membership and say that these are leaders when we know that they are not capable of fulfilling the tasks that is expected of them? And as the chair said, they then opportunistically resigned to create a public perception that the organization is in a crisis, people are jumping off. We're removing them in terms of the decision. And in relation to the Deputy President, Robert Mwendo, who is also the president of Mawusa, he has said publicly that he was overwhelmed by the tasks of being a deputy president of a founding organization and being a president of a union which has to pay full-time attention on the sector that he organizes in. Of course, you will give different reasons every day, but we accept that reason. And we could see that he was indeed overwhelmed in fulfilling the tasks that he had to fulfill as deputy president of Africa Mayibuye movement. So I think that issue has been clarified. So there is no crisis, none whatsoever, in terms of the organization that we're building. But also, you must take to consideration that, you know, all the political organizations that exist in South Africa, at formative stages, will always undergo those dynamic leadership changes. You know, the South African Natives National Congress, which was renamed the African National Congress in 1923, it had a lot of difficulties between 1912 and 1923, including its founding president, John Langalibalele Dube, distancing himself from the organization. When they were sending petitions to the Queen in Britain, they never had a common view of what is their route to freedom or emancipation. Many difficulties. When J.T. Gumede was the president, the fourth president, he was unceremoniously removed because he was beginning to associate with the left forces, particularly after he had attended the 10th anniversary of the Great Socialist October Revolution in the United Soviet Socialist Republics in Moscow. So those dynamics will always be there. The other organization, I don't want to talk about that we founded. By the time it went to its first anniversary, its founding National Secretary General or National Coordinator was no longer there. Majority of people who had signed in registering the party were not there in the first anniversary. The less said about the other one, the better. Like, it has not celebrated a second anniversary, but has had possibly 28 secretaries general. I mean, something like that. So, in our case, we maintain principle of discipline, of consistency, of competence, and that is one thing that we do not compromise on, and we will never compromise on. That from time to time we engage in self-criticism and review the work and contributions of each and individual leader, because we can't, in the name of closing ranks, compromise the quality of the organization. We cannot, in the name of closing ranks, say to society that these people are leaders who are going to provide solutions to their problems. What we ultimately should offer to society as leadership should be people whom we know credibly that these are going to be an alternate to what society has been offered now. Because these political parties that exist now, they know that the people that they serve with are either corrupt or lazy or incapable or illiterate or semi-literate, but they will still say, no, vote for these comrades to be government, when they know that they cannot add any value. We are not going to do that in Africa Mayibuye movement. We will have proper self-criticism to shape each other so that when we go to society, we know without an inch of doubt that these are leaders who are going to provide leadership to a society. So that is one issue which we thought we should deal with. The Secretary General has excellently dealt with the contextualization of the Restoration Manifesto, that we are a 21st century liberation movement, but we do not claim to be the inverters of the struggle for freedom and emancipation. We are taking a baton from the generations that fought before us. And because that war which they were fighting was not won, we're still continuing in that journey. And we're going to run towards the finish line as Africa Mayibuye movement. You're correct in Tebo that there were a lot of issues that occurred. You mentioned that between 1990 and 1994, more than 20,000 black people were killed in the transition from apartheid to so-called democracy. But a narrative is told all over the world that South Africa experienced a peaceful transition because no white person was killed. We raised that in the Restoration Manifesto. We contextualize it clearly that one, to say that South Africa had a peaceful transition is because no white people were killed, but more than 20,000 black people were killed in political violence in that transition. There is nothing peaceful about that transition. But also we make a novel and possibly nuanced analysis as to what led to the political killings that occurred from 1990 to 1994. And amongst those problems and contributions and contributors was the African National Congress mischaracterization of other black political parties as enemy forces and not as opponents. So in the ANC, IFP was viewed as an enemy force. In some instances, even comrades from AZAPO, from PAC, were clubbed with enemy forces. And you know what was the instruction to the ground forces in the townships, in Togoza, in Duduza, and everywhere else was that enemy forces must be eliminated. And we say in the Restoration Manifesto that we do not view any of the black political parties as an enemy force as Africa Mayibuye movement. We view some as opponents, but we view majority of them as potential strategic allies, because we must unite all the progressive forces of black parties to pursue a progressive agenda of redress, of building a prosperous society that is defined by common prosperity. That is why we can, without even having second thoughts, issue a congratulatory message to COSATU, which we know is in alliance with the ANC. But other parties that are narrow in thinking, everything else, no, these are ANC, we cannot associate with them, as if we're some rivalries of soccer clubs. We're not like that. We are a matured political movement that appreciates that the struggles of black people have to be unified. We must speak from the same script. And of the existing black political parties, there is not a single one that has got the ideological, political, and organizational and moral capacity and authority and willingness to could lead the majority of our people. And Africa Mayibuye movement is therefore filling that gap that has been existing for a very long time. That is why we're not narrowly partisan. We pursue the interests and aspirations of the people of South Africa. That is how and who we are. I'm sure these are the issues which we are going to be talking in detail in the National Convention in terms of how we'll deal with those issues. Of course, the Deputy President has said as well that we are advocating for the Commission of Inquiry on Black Poverty. The white people did so to abolish white poverty. We gave an illustration that they understood the cultural, psychological, social, economic, political presence and manifestation of white poverty, and they uprooted it permanently and intergenerationally. Ourselves were trapped in intergenerational poverty, and there seemed to be no solution out of it. That is why we need to pay dedicated attention as to how do we uproot the deep sense of multi-dimensional black poverty that exists in South Africa. And that can only happen by understanding the nature of the poverty question in our communities, but also by sourcing the solutions from the people on the ground. We got to discover during the consultation process that our people know what is to be done. They've got proper and sound solutions on what needs to be done in the immediate. The small-scale farmers in Skemelele, there in Jozini, they say that if you were to give us an irrigation scheme, we bring in more and more people into this small-scale agriculture, we'll be able to sustain our households and take care of our families sustainably. We can sustainably escape the absolute poverty bracket. They are fully aware of what needs to be done. Is that there is no listening and responsive government, and that is what Africa Mayibuye movement is going to replace. We are not going to be like Action SA or Musimaimane's party and all of those small parties. We are an organization that is national in character. It exists everywhere. You know, we exist even in Central Karoo, like our provincial deputy chairperson used to be a mayor of Central Karoo, Truman Prince. We exist in Central Karoo. There are many political parties that have never existed in Central Karoo. Many years after their existence, they have never got to exist in the West Coast, in Overberg, in the Western Cape, in the Garden Route region, district, and all of those areas, in the Cape Winelands. But Mayibuye, and we are not fictionalizing. You will see when we present our organizational report. We have got leadership structures and leaders in all the regions of KwaZulu-Natal. And we are not fictionalizing as well. We are not doing propaganda when we say that some of our members and leaders are serving councillors, some are serving in the executive as deputy mayors, and they are openly associating with Africa Mayibuye movement. And of course, they associate with us because they want to be honest public representatives in all the areas where they serve currently. So our movement exists everywhere, in Kanyakude, in Zululand, in Ugu, in Ilembe, in Irigwala, in Mzinyati, in Etequini, in King Tetwayo, in all the regions of KwaZulu-Natal. We exist in all the regions of the Eastern Cape, from Nelson Mandela, Sarah Bartman, Amatole, O.R. Tambo, in Buffalo City, solid structure that we have in Jokabi here in Aluwal North, solid structure, and Chris Han, the deputy chairperson of the Eastern Cape province, comes from Ngob, a Bituma municipality. Like, there are very few organizations that got to gain traction in the distant parts of South Africa. We have got an organization in the province which are named after doctors of Ngaka Mudiru Mulema, Dr. Ruth Sukhomotsu Mompati, and Dr. Kenneth Kaunda and Bojanala here in the Northwest. solid organization and experienced comrades who got to even join us and are leading in the regions of Ngaka and Bojanala, who are going to be solid alternatives to what is existing. All the sub-regions of the Limpopo are constituted in Wembe, solid leadership structures, and adults, professors in universities are leading Africa Mayibuye movement in Tulamela. You can go and check that fact. It's a reality. And not just children. Leaders who are there in Skukune were led by the traditional leadership. The chair of Skukune is a councillor in Fetahomu Tubatse municipality and is the chairperson of the region of Mayibuye in Skukune. Proper presence in Capricorn, in Mopani, despite their internal dynamics which must be nipped in the bud and be dealt with. But we've got an organization in Waterberg, in all the areas. In Mpumalanga, we've got a solid organization in the region that we have demarcated of Botlabela, which is Tabachewe and Bushbuck region, and Tanzania. In Komazi, our national deputy chairperson comes from Komazi, has gained proper traction in Nkomazi municipality. It's one of the municipalities where we're going to perform the best, if not win outrightly, in Mpumalanga province, in Bombela, in all the 7 sub-regions of Bande. We've got an organization in Kangala, in all the areas of South Africa, including in the Northern Cape. We've got presence in John Taule Haitiwe, where the national chair originally comes from, but stays in Francis Bard now, and here in Johannesburg. And we have in Namakwa, in all the regions, in Pixley. So we've got an organization that is existing. We've got an infrastructure of credible people whom we can say to society, here are the people who can lead at municipal level and do so in a competent and responsive way in terms of how we are designed. So in the Free State we exist in all the regions. Here in Fezile Dabi, in Taomofutsanyana, in Mangaung, and in Lujole Putso, both the chair and treasurer of the Free State come from Lujole Putso in Machabing. So we have an organization that is existing. We're not daydreaming, we're not fictionalizing, we're not pushing propaganda. We know we've got people on the ground and an organization that is here to stay. So that is who we are. Now I agree that the multilateral institutions in the African continent have failed to achieve majority of the objectives that they have set for themselves, including the intention and program to silence the guns. The guns are not silent. There is still violence in many parts of the African continent. But we must appreciate that part of this violence is sponsored by the neo-colonial forces, which sometimes is the governments or companies that want to exploit the resources without any repercussions. The destabilization of the DRC is done so that there is unmitigated natural resources theft. And it's happening at a large scale of cobalt, of gold, of all the strategic minerals that are there. And the involvement of the United States of America in the conflict between the DRC and Rwanda is meant to take the mineral resources from the DRC. I think that is in the text of the agreement which was first facilitated by Qatar, that they want to exploit the natural resources. The destabilization in Mozambique is sponsored by external forces as well. But we have no credible institutions and multilateral institutions in the African continent, particularly the African Union, is very weak. And we need to have strong multilateral institutions in the continent, including a standby African peacekeeping army and mission which will suppress rebels that are working with external forces to destabilize parts of the regions in the continent. And that is part of the issues that, from a policy and practice point of view, we will be advocating as a Africa Mayibuye movement. So that is where I think we have covered a lot of ground. We are not in the region of 5% and all of those things. Our people have already illustrated in the 2024 elections that they have got no confidence in all the political parties that are existing. Hence, the lowest voter turnout since 1994. And we as Africa Mayibuye movement are going to be the voice that speaks to all the people that have disengaged. And the reason why we are elevating the issues which religious leaders are raising, the reason why we are elevating the issues that traditional leaders are raising is because we know that none of the existing political parties give the necessary recognition and respect of our traditional and religious leaders. And we as Africa Mayibuye movement will be the most dependable, consistent, and reliable voice for all the religious institutions and all the traditional institutions which organize our people, because our people are organized. They are the most organized. You have ZCC with possibly 15 million members and multiple thousands of churches across South Africa. And when they say on Sunday, all of them, 1 o'clock the church is starting. On Sunday, 1 o'clock the church is starting. The whole country. Similar with all the other churches, the temples of the Nazareth Baptist Church, Ebuhleni, same mandate, very disciplined congregation that listens to their leadership. But politically, they are voiceless. They complain to the leaders of the church. The leaders of the church do not have access to any political leadership, and political leadership treats them as tokens or as people that must just vote for them and cannot contribute anything in terms of government. That is the narrative which we seek to fundamentally change as Africa Mayibuye movement, so that we can build a society which will achieve total emancipation and freedom now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade President, national officials. Let me also take this moment and thank all leaders of Africa Mayibuye for joining us on this important presser, a pre-national convention press conference of Africa Mayibuye. Members of the media, we hope to see you on the 5th of December when we open the national convention, a very historic moment of a very young organization which is just less than 7 months here at the UJ campus, University of Johannesburg. So thank you very much for heading to the call of this pre-national convention press conference. Thank you very much. Let me ask the second Deputy President, Comrade Kamashobane, to come and close for us with a prayer.
Thank you, Chairperson. I understand the protocol that when the President has spoken, no one should come up with other stories. But let me just thank the President and the SG, and the First Deputy President for those articulations and those responses. Really, really, the violence that we experienced as a country was an orchestrated one. That is all I will say. Shall we pray? Sibongile uNkulunkulu wethu ithuba osinikeze lona namhlanje. Sesibuyele emakhaya. Sesiyoqala umsebenzi. Silungiselela umhla ka5 to umhla ka7. And after that, going forward without turning back. Siyakhuleka uNkulunkulu ukuthi ube kanye nathi. Kuko konke esikwenzayo in trying to prepare for the event. Gcine nabantu bakho, the delegates that are busy in the provinces preparing for this convention. Gcine leadership yethu isalungisa ilungiselela lolu suku. We pray ukuthi uNkulunkulu imayibuye iziphendule imibuzo nezikhalo zabantu ezitholakale ku consultation process. Egcineni kwakheka our restoration manifesto. Siyakhuleka uNkulunkulu ukuthi wena uzosikhumbula ngelinye ilanga. Siwumuzo onsundu ukuthi ukukhala kwethu nokuhlupheka kwethu nokucindezelwa kwethu kweminyaka ngeminyaka sizofika uNkulunkulu futhi sesikhona isikhathi sokuqabula lamaketanga. Sithi singabantu abansundu sihlangane sibe imbumba. Singabuka omunye nomunye eyisitha. Kodwa si understand the cause, which is to free a black child. Moya ingcwele sikhulekela ipresence yakho kulelizwe lethu, sikhulekela umusa nothando lwakho. Sigcine Nkosi usihole nasendleleni. Sisazohamba abe media behlukahlukana behamba nathi sisala siqhubeka nomsebenzi. Londoloza nabantwana bethu emakhaya. Londoloza nemindeni yethu. Nakho konke esikuthandayo nesikuvikelayo sikhuleka egameni lika Jesu manje naphakade. Amen.
Thank you very much, comrades, leadership, and the members of the media. This press stands adjourned.